Maybe your rank is not as high as you would like it to be and you're looking for some players that no one else owns to shoot you back up the leaderboards. These are 10 differentials that I think you should consider for your overhaul team. Let's jump straight into things. So as it stands, this is the draft that I put out the other day, which basically was what I considered to be pretty much the template team going into the overhaul. I think we're really looking at a pool of about 15-16 players that most of the game are going to have. Obviously I've got Gross in this team, a few people are going to have Dunk, maybe João Pedro. I've got Trent in this team, others will go for the likes of Van Dijk, so there is obviously a lot of 50-50s in there, but as it stands I do think this is a very template team, so we're going to be looking at players outside of that are going to possibly push the rank up. So we're going to be starting things off with Ivan Toney, someone who has just came back from his long-term ban. Now, he has been labelled as not for sale by Brentford, so we are looking at possibly a player who's going to be staying there until the summer. And I think he could be a very good alternative to Saka if you aren't really too happy about going for him as a captaincy for the first 2 days. Obviously the first day that Arsenal play against Palace, we're looking at a very tough day for captaincy, but I think you could definitely go for Toney against Nottingham Forest on that day. We do know how good Toney is as a Sky asset in previous seasons, and I think he just could do very well if you aren't interested in Saka. And I think considering the template team, most of us should have a third striker spot available, so if you're interested in doing Haaland, Watkins and Toney, I definitely think he could be an option. It is worth considering though that Brentford do not have the best fixtures. You can see Spurs, Man City and Chelsea all early on in January and February, which could put you off him, and which is why he probably won't be too highly owned. Plus we don't really know how his form's going to be being out of football for so long, which is going to make him a differential, but again, if he does come back firing, he definitely could prove to be fantastic. Next up, we're going for Kieran Trippier, a player who probably overall will be fairly highly owned, but if we're talking the hardcore player base, probably won't be as highly owned as he first was earlier in the season. We do have some decent fixtures for Newcastle, and the whole back line is basically back from injury. We do now have Dan Burn, Botman, Shart and Trippier all available for Newcastle. The only person missing is Nick Pope in goals, but Newcastle obviously are interested in signing a new goalkeeper in the transfer window. And if we're looking at the fixtures, by the time that Man City and Villa are out of the way, considered their difficult fixtures, they should now have a new goalkeeper by this time, going into a fixture run of Luton, Forest and Bournemouth. And then if we're looking at the Luton game as well, it is also a home game where you could captain Kieran Trippier. I do believe he is the best captain on that day, so if you're looking for him, I think he could be very good. And considering all of Newcastle, well, most of Newcastle's players are going to be back from injury, I think we could definitely see a different Newcastle in this second half of the season, especially with no Champions League. I think they will be well rested and good to go. Thirdly, we're going for Kyle Walker, probably the most nailed defender in the Man City defence, and I think short term he could be a very good option. Obviously the cheapest City defender in terms of players who start regularly. He does pick up passing quite often, and he does. Obviously we are waiting on Man City to go on that fantastic run where they pick up lots of wins. I think when you look at probably about the Man United game is where it starts getting difficult, maybe even Chelsea if you wanted to go shorter than that. After that there is a lot of difficult games for Man City where they probably won't keep too many clean sheets, but if you're looking for a short term option, you're looking at Newcastle, Burnley, Brentford and Everton, and by the time those games are finished, players are coming back from AFCON and the Asian Cup, and you can definitely make a sub. So maybe if you wanted to have Walker for the first 4 games and transfer him out for Salah later on, it's definitely a decent option. And I do think, while Man City haven't been fantastic so far, second half of the season is normally where they flourish, and it could be a very good opportunity to jump on Man City defenders early on in the year. Another player who may see an increase in ownership is Phil Foden. I do think he just fits outside of the template, however, which is why I'm considering it as a differential. He has came into some good form, but there is a couple things you have to watch with him. Obviously De Bruyne, Haaland and Doku are all back, which means the Man City attacking line isn't really nailed on at all. and we could see some rotation with Foden, especially with Doku back playing in the same position. However, Foden has done very well and is a very good chance of keeping that right wing spot due to his previous form. Has just scored 2 goals in the FA Cup as well, and I think personally I don't really like to own Foden because he does go in a lot of runs and then he has a lot of stinkers with 2-pointers and just not really playing as much. But if you are looking to play that risky game, I do think Foden could do very well. He has some opportunity to pick up some 20 plus pointers against the likes of Burnley and Brentford. I do think he could be very good early on. Again, similar to Walker, he is someone you could transfer out for the likes of Mo Salah, Heung-min Son in February, and I think short term the fixtures look very good for him. It is just whether he is going to play every game or not. Next, we're going for a bit more of a safe Man City player, the third Man City player in a row, and we're going for Bernardo Silva. I think in terms against Foden, you're looking at someone who's consistently picking up passing bonus or just bonus in general, whether it is passing, tackles or shots. He can obviously get a goal and he does chip in with a lot of assists as well. I definitely would consider him more nailed than Phil Foden is. While he isn't a typical go-to Sky player, I do think there is some similarities to someone like Pascal Gross, as you do get avenues to a lot of different bonus points, and he does pick up goals and he does pick up assists. I think, however, like on opposite to Gross, Bernardo Silva could easily pick up 2 goals, 2 assists in the one game. Obviously, again, we are looking at Burnley and Brentford coming up, 2 teams who aren't brilliant defensively. And again, I think he could be a very, very good gamble that could pay off very well. Next, we're going for a player who I mentioned in my overhaul guide video. I do think João Pedro could be a fantastic differential. Obviously, we do have some captaincies coming up with Brighton, one against Wolves, and I do think if you're kind of going against someone like Gross or Dunk, I think the ceiling is a lot higher for someone like Pedro. He definitely has the opportunity to score 2-3 goals in games, and I think considering how nailed he is with Mitoma and Adingra away to their respective international tournaments, I do think João Pedro has a very good opportunity to pick up a lot of points over the next couple of weeks. Brighton's fixtures as well look absolutely fantastic, definitely number 1 in terms of fixtures for this run-up in terms of the new year, and I do think João Pedro could be very good. He's also on penalties as well, which makes him even better of an asset, and again, like I said earlier, I think most people's third striker spot should be available, so if you wanted to go Haaland, Watkins and João Pedro, I definitely think that could be very effective. Next up, we're going for Dom Solanke. Now, despite his fantastic form, I don't think he's going to be very well owned going into the overhaul. I think Bournemouth probably have the worst run-in in terms of fixtures for the next 6 or so games. You can see Liverpool in there, you can see Newcastle in there, and you can see Man City in there. But similar to the likes of the Man City players, by the time the Newcastle and Man City fixtures come around, you can easily take them out for guys coming back from AFCON and the Asian Cup. So really, we're looking at Liverpool, West Ham, Forest and Fulham, games where Solanke easily could score in. If you're willing to trust Solanke against Liverpool in a home fixture as well, the next 3 fixtures look very good for him. And again, you can consider him as a captaincy against Nottingham Forest. If you take a look at that game day, he does look probably like the best captain, so you're getting a lot of good fixtures out of him and you're getting a captaincy, and then you can always take him out in February for your favourite Asian and African players. Next up is Martin Odegaard, another alternative to Saka. However, we're looking at a more stable pick, someone who picks up a lot of regular passing bonus. So if you're not really too happy and gambling on Saka for your captaincy, Odegaard does have a higher floor and he kind of normally gets about the 4 or 5 points, whether that's with shot tiers, tackle tiers or passing tiers. And again, I think if you're really not wanting to go with Saka, I think Odegaard could be a very decent replacement. Obviously, it doesn't chip in with as many goals and assists as Saka, but Saka is hitting a very bad run of form, and I think if there's any opportunity to go against him, it would be now. And obviously, the next best Arsenal attacker / midfielder would be Odegaard. As the penultimate pick, we are going for Jordan Pickford, someone who may actually be quite highly owned later on in the game when it comes to captaincies. He does have an upcoming captaincy against Crystal Palace. It is probably going to be my pick as well as a goalkeeper after the Burnley and Luton game, but I do think as a general pick he probably isn't going to be that highly owned. I think a lot of people are going to prefer to go to the Palace goalkeepers, whether it's going to be Dean Henderson or Sam Johnson. But I think with Pickford, he has picked up a few clean sheets now, and again, someone I did mention in the Overhaul guide, I think Dyche could really be kicking in now with Everton. We could see a lot of clean sheets from him. He is now the 4th highest scoring goalkeeper in the game, and I do think he could do pretty decently. Again, fixtures aren't brilliant with the likes of Villa, Spurs, and Man City coming up as well, with Brighton after that single game day. But I think in terms of picking up saves, and I think getting a lucky clean sheet, Everton could definitely do that. Again, a couple home fixtures in there, which is where they seem to do the best. I do think Pickford could be pretty good. We're also considering Sunday's captaincy in the first week back. We don't really have a very good captain. I think Watkins will be the most captained, but we know he isn't fantastic away from home, or Villa aren't fantastic away from home. And again, it is another home fixture for Everton. So if you are really feeling the gamble, I think Pickford could be an alright captain on Sunday if you really want to gamble on them keeping a clean sheet against Aston Villa. But again, even without that, I think as a long-term pick, straight up to that captaincy against Crystal Palace, Pickford could be a decent option. And finally, rounding off the video, we're going for Pervis Estupiñán, someone who has just came back from injury and scored 2 goals in his last 3 games from left back. Again, another alternative to the likes of Gross and Dunk. I think he looks fantastic as a goal threat, picking up assists. He does pick up the odd passing as well. I think with the amount of passes that Brighton do get, with their midfielders getting passes, their centre-backs picking up 100 plus passes, there is a very good chance that Estupiñán would be involved in that as well. And we did see it at the start of the season with him picking up passes as well. So I think again, if you're willing to gamble, he probably will be one of the lesser owned Brighton players in terms of Gross, Dunk and João Pedro. I do think he still could be very good, mainly for that attacking threat, but also because he does have the backup of passing, and Brighton's fixtures again look like the number 1 in the league, and they definitely have some opportunities for clean sheets. But that is going to round off today's Overhaul video. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my picks, and if you found any other ones that you think should have been in the video, again, let me know. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, because there will be some more Overhaul videos coming before the deadline, and I'll see you all in the next video.